that this meeting will be recorded. The recording has started, and we're ready to go, Gretchen.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our very first virtual meeting. My name is Gretchen Lopez, and I'm the current chair of the Seniors Council of Douglas County, and we're so excited that you've joined us today. I'd like to thank our county commissioners in the county for providing the technical support that we need to make this meeting happen. Thank you so very much. Before we move on to our presentation, I'd like to share several items with you. We'll be conducting virtual meetings like this one on the first Thursday of each month for the remainder of the calendar year. We may continue this format into 2021 based upon what the COVID situation is like towards the end of the year. Your health and safety is our primary concern, so we may rely on technology to stay connected to you. We'll keep you posted on our decision. The Executive Committee has been meeting online and working very hard to develop new programming as well as new and innovative outreach efforts. One of our new ideas is called First Friday Updates. This is a brief one-page newsletter type format that comes directly to your email address on the first Friday of each month. It includes a preview of the educational presentation for the following month and several other topics of interest. Our August First Friday update will, of course, go out tomorrow, and we'll share information about our September presenter, Officer Jason Blanchard with the Douglas County Sheriff's Office. He'll be speaking about how law enforcement uses technology to keep us safe and protect us. It will also include a link to a short video by the Parker Police Department on what to do if you, or if you're like my grandkids when they grab my cell phone, accidentally dial 911, and a link to a video of Windcrest Readers Theater. Both of these are informative and very enjoyable. You can sign up to receive these updates as well as offer your feedback on today's meeting at dcseniorlife@douglas.co.us. I'll repeat that. That's dcseniorlife@douglas.co.us. Another idea we are currently working on are short vignettes on what we individually are doing to keep physically and mentally active while we stay safer at home. Each of us has a different way of handling that cabin fever, and you'll get a glimpse of what that looks like on a very personal level. Also, I'd like to invite you to check out our Facebook page, My Dudco Senior Life, and our YouTube channel for additional information about the Seniors Council and what we have planned for the next several months. One final item, a scam alert from the Douglas County Sheriff's Office, and I'm going to read what they forwarded to us. The Colorado Department of Labor and Employment is tracking a new scam involving unemployment claims that are filed using another person's identity. The latest victim, who is retired, reported that he received a Visa debit card in the mail. When he contacted the bank associated with the card, he was told that the debit card was for unemployment. He contacted the unemployment office and they were able to determine that a claim was made in his name using his social security number and his date of birth. The suspects had elected to have the money directly deposited into their bank account. Luckily, they caught it early enough and no money was transferred to the suspect, but this still poses a threat of identity theft. If you or another family member gets a card like this in the mail, make a police report immediately. Make sure to call the bank associated with the card and tell them that a fraudulent unemployment claim was filed using your information and ask them to deactivate the card. And now let me introduce Tiffany Curtin, an adult literacy specialist at the Castle Rock Library and our current education chair.
Thank you, Gretchen. So before I introduce our speaker today, I just wanted to give some updates about what we can expect for speakers for the next first Thursdays through the rest of 2020. So on September 3rd, we're looking at a presentation with Officer Blanchard to talk about the use of technology by the police department, including things like drones and how the sheriff's office is using that technology and what you might be flying over your head at some point from the sheriff's office. October 1st, we'll have a presentation from Dennis Del Piso to discuss Medicare open enrollment. As open enrollment will be starting in October, and you can be fully informed about what to expect on the 2021 open enrollment. Then on November 1st, we'll have a presentation from Jean Analt, who is the SHIP coordinator. And SHIP is the State Health Insurance Assistance Programs. So that's SHIP with a P at the end. And then December 4th, we'll have a fun presentation from Joyce Fustel. She is the owner of Boomer Social Media to talk about some tips for getting connected on Facebook and things that maybe you might not already know if you're already a Facebook user to enjoy that. I'm going to right now turn this over to our host, CJ, who will give you some information about how to participate during, before I introduce our speaker today, Mr. Jamie Sorrells. So, hey, can you share how to participate?
Yes, so again, this is CJ Gates with the Douglas County, and I'm hosting the virtual meeting today. So it does look like we have 27 attendees. So for everyone attending, after Jamie's presentation, if you have some questions, we'll cut out some time for everyone to, get those questions answered. For this virtual meeting, there's a couple different ways that you can get my attention, and then I can add you to a list and we'll get all your questions answered. So first and foremost, if everyone that's on a computer that's logged in as an attendee can hover their mouse on the bottom of their screen, they're going to see some bubbles down there. Over to the right side of the bubbles, there's a chat function. It looks kind of like a speech bubble. If you click on that, on the right-hand side of your screen, you should see a place where you can type a chat, and then under the 2, it should say host. So I'm the host of this meeting, and you can just chat me your name. So just first and last name, and then I can add you to the list. When the public comment portion comes after the presentation, I am going to call your name and then unmute you. Once you are unmuted, you are able to speak and ask your question, and after your question, I will mute your microphone back. The second way of doing so, of getting my attention and getting on the list, is just to the left of the speech bubble. The next bubble is, it looks like a head, shoulders, and 3 stacks of paper. If you click on that, this pulls up the participants list. At the bottom of the participants list, there is a square function that looks like a raised hand. If you clicked that raised hand, that means that you have a question. I can call on you then, unmute your microphone, and you can ask your question. If for some reason the microphone does not work, we cannot hear you, I will mute your microphone and then chat you privately, and then you can type your question to me personally, the host, and I can then ask the question to either Gretchen or Jamie or whoever you would like that question directed to. If you have any technical difficulties whatsoever hearing me, if we have any technical difficulties hearing you as attendees asking questions, just feel free to chat me. Again, I'm the host, and we can try to alleviate those problems as soon as we can and get everyone's questions answered. Again, my name is CJ, and just let me know if you guys have any problems. I'm here to help. So back to you guys.
Thanks, CJ. So now I would like to introduce our speaker today, Mr. Jamie Sorrells. He is the Director of Consumer Fraud Protection for the 18th Judicial District Attorney's Office. which serves Arapahoe, Douglas, Elbert, and Lincoln counties. He oversees a comprehensive program that educates consumers regarding financial scams and schemes operating within the 18th jurisdiction and the entire metro area. He assists those who have fallen victim to a fraudulent event, conducts fraud and elder exploitation prevention seminars, consumer fraud alerts, and collaborates with a variety of media outlets and agencies to share consumer fraud protection information on a statewide basis. CFP is a part of the Economic Crime Unit. Prior to joining the District Attorney's Office, he was Vice President of Marketing and Sales Operations with an international manufacturing company and Assistant Vice President with Bank of America in their National Marketing and Service Affluent Banking Division. He has held various volunteer board and advisory positions in the areas of economic development, education, and gifted development. I'd like to turn this over to Mr. Jamie Sorrells now.
Thank you. Thank you. So can everybody hear me? I hope. Okay. And let me get over to our presentation for today. Okay. 1 second. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Gretchen. Thank you, Tiffany. Thank you, CJ. It's a pleasure to be here today.
Hey, Jamie, I'm sorry. This is CJ. I don't mean to interrupt you, but the view that we are seeing is the presenter's view. So I think it has the next slide and, so it's not the full screen. I apologize.
It's okay. Let's do this.
Yes, that's perfect.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll
Thank
go
you.
with this. Yeah, sure. Absolutely. So once again, thank you, everybody. So today, what I want to talk about, it's actually pretty broad. The world of fraud and potential scams is very, very present and broad. And what we're going to try to cover today is on identity theft, in the tech age and in the world of COVID-19. So, just a second. Okay. So as we are experiencing, daily, we are in the midst of a pandemic known as COVID-19. And as a result of that and other factors, we're also experiencing, an economic downturn. So it's moments like this that create great shifts in how we think and how we act. It impacts us on many, many, many levels. But we've had episodes like this in the past. We've had economic downturns before. We've had other pandemics. And so this is part of what we experience as humans and in society and in life. So COVID-19, it's definitely impacting all of us on one level or another. It doesn't spare anybody. It's affecting individuals and businesses on a range of different levels. And because of that, it creates the perfect storm for fraudulent activity to be raised to a heightened level. Because fraud and scam have always been there, but at the present time, the current theme that is causing such a uptake and surge is the COVID-19 and economic downturn. This will pass to some degree. A few years from now, something else will surface. So right now, the COVID-19 is kind of the theme. It's the genre that we're experiencing. And as a result, these criminals are making extended efforts to do what they do, which are bad things to all of us. So once again, fraud does not, in general, fraud itself does not discriminate. It impacts the old, it impacts the young, it impacts everyone in between. As we've been sitting here during the pandemic, especially during the shut-in, as we're sitting here and working with our children and our grandchildren, trying to do our jobs remotely, virtually, these criminals are at their day job. And their day job is throughout the day, every day, throwing these nets out to see what they can catch and who's going to bite. These are professionals. These are rarely individuals. These are organized groups. It's organized crime on a domestic level and on an international level. And so as we're going about our day and trying to get through this difficult time, they're doing their job, and their job is to commit fraud, often for financial gain or discomfort to others. So what they tried to do here, this last bullet point down here, is, like I said, when we are going through moments like this, where we tend to be very logical in normal times, logical thinking. We may be very thrifty on our choices when it comes to purchasing something online or in person or whatever. We often pride ourselves in our decisions. Some of us can be very quick and impulsive to make a choice or decision on something. But with moments like this, where there's uncertainty out there, scarcity out there, often we shift over to an emotional realm. And that's where they can get us. And so often where we've been very diligent and good at protecting ourselves, making good decisions, we can fall victim. And sometimes that misstep is so small, they can have great negative consequences. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to put us, as I have here, put us in the ether. And when they can do that, and and we're in that emotional space, it's very easy to tip us a little bit the direction that they want us to go into. So some of you may have seen, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on these next two slides. These are they're fraud alerts, but they're more advisories that I've put out somewhat recently. These two kind of revolve around COVID once again. The things that we're experiencing, these frauds and scams on the phone, via text, through emails that are coming in, maybe in person. These scams have been going on for years. There are not a lot of new scams. Once again, it's just that the theme is kind of COVID related. It's the genre. So forgive me here. But this is one of them here. I identified three different things here: unemployment and job offer scams. Gretchen had mentioned a current activity taking place, in Douglas County around unemployment. There's actually a lot of things. And so here's something here on the unemployment. A big thing right here is a lot of the information, I'm going to get into this, where they're getting these social security numbers and this personal identifiable information are through old breaches of established companies and service providers and what have you. So with the unemployment, there's a lot of fraud out there right now. And talking to the Colorado Bureau of Investigations recently and presentations they've been doing, there's a lot going on in that space, and it also impacts job offer scams. But there are various states that have been hit really, really hard. The unemployment divisions have been hit very hard because through old data breaches, social security numbers, and other information have been accessed, sold on the dark web, and the people who have this information that purchased it are pretending to be these social security numbers, and they're fined for uninsurance, and they're getting these benefits, and the rightful person is not. So there's a lot going on there. And with the job offer scams, there's some quick little bullet points right here to keep in mind. Just one thing to be very cautious of, and I think most of us know this: federal entities such as the FBI, Social Security Administration, and the like are never going to call you. They're never going to send you a text. They're never going to send you an email. The way they communicate with you is through the U.S. postal system. And if you have a special case and you've been working with them and you have a case manager, the IRS or something like that, that could be different because you have a relationship there, but they are never going to reach you through those channels. It's always going to be through U.S. mail. The job offer scams, some of us at the very young side and and over 65 and what have you, there's a lot of work from home jobs being posted out there right now. There always have been, but a lot of these are fraudulent. One key thing to point out right here is if you ever see something that sounds too good to be true, it probably is, and you get these offers, if they're asking you to pay something in order to work, it's a scam. It's a fraud. But in each of these right here, here's the unemployment, job offer, investment scams. A lot of us are involved to some degree or another in various investments or what have you. Be very careful right here. There's a lot of products and services that have surfaced that are COVID related. And these could be little micro cap stocks, what have you. There's very little information on it, but they promise the greatest. There's a lot of fraud in there. So just you be the driver. And if you're working with someone, an advisor, what have you, stick with them and don't stray. All of us are getting these robocalls and texts. Key item here is if you don't recognize it, if it's an unsolicited number or email or text coming in, ignore it. Ignore it. If the call is relevant, they're going to leave a message. You can listen to it at that point, and that's safe, and you can determine if it's worth pursuing or not. But if you don't know it, ignore it. And that's pre-COVID, it's COVID, it's post-COVID. So, but you should feel empowered because there are a lot of things that you can do if you take very, very simple steps. So here's another one that went out. This is just on phishing emails and communications. The key here is that once again, if it's an unsolicited email that you receive with a link, click here, don't do it. Even if it's something that you recognize, like it's Target or eBay or just something that's known to you. If you're, listen to your gut, but in general, if it's unsolicited, don't click on it, because typically if you do click on these links, a lot of bad things can happen. One is you go into a whole different bucket and on the dark web where you're someone that is susceptible to opening. So a lot of people start coming at you. The other thing is you could click on that and it could install some bad software, some malware, and it could corrupt your phone. It could corrupt your whatever device that you have. Charities. This is always been there, but there's a lot under the COVID. You know, a lot of the organizations that are reaching out and trying to solicit that have COVID in the name typically are fraudulent. As a safeguard, if you want to give and it's something new, one very quick place to go to is go to the Colorado Secretary of State's website, put in the name of the organization, and you can see if they're registered with the state. A lot of these that are circulating around, are you getting calls from or not? And a lot of these will pressure you. It's urgent. You have to donate now. Across the board with anything, whether it's a charity or microcap stock or whatever, if they're pressing you to do something now, don't. Hang up. Ignore it. And as I said a few minutes ago, the key, one of the best drivers for you to protect yourself is you run the investigation, and that if it's a company, a product, an entity, and you're somewhat interested, you go to the website. Don't go to a link that they provide you. You go to that website. You call that organization up. You do the research, and you find out if it's legitimate or not. And I'm going to show you in a few minutes just how you can kind of see what a secure website, how it's indicated, and some other steps that online you can feel better about where you're going to. So anyway, I have put those out there. I think one was Castle Rock or Park or one of senior organizations there. It's been pretty good about posting these, but I'm happy to send these out or any other advisories if you want. And I can, but they're also on our website, which I'll show you at the end. So once again, COVID is just the theme of the day. Crime has always been there. These are white collar crimes. And they're typically run by organized groups. So risk posed by technology. There's cyber crimes. The ransomware scams it's still very common and out there. The malware, which can damage your sites and could potentially take over your camera on your laptop. There are dating site scams, Craigslist, data breaches, which I'm going to go through pretty extensively. Then there's the phone scams, social media. And believe it or not, there's still a lot of old school types of fraud, like gas pumps and ATMs and the like, and mailboxes, and I'll cover that briefly. But there's identity theft, which is right here, you can see it, someone who uses the personal identifying information for financial gain. It's unlawful, it's against the law, it's a class 4 felony. Criminal impersonation is really where someone has gained your information and they're impersonating you, and that can vary, but a very simple explanation of that, it could be where they've obtained information and they're pulled over for a traffic violation, and rather than presenting their information, they give yours, and then the two go their ways. Court date shows, appears, and you don't appear because you didn't know, because it wasn't you. And there's other ways that impersonation can become manipulated. So, so who's most at risk? Obviously, those who routinely open emails, those who receive solicitations through email and act on them, don't do it. Those who are asked for personal information without providing, making sure, you need to know who you're talking to. You just, you are in charge. You are in charge. Obviously, those who don't, whether it's the phone, regardless of the type of device, if you don't get the latest version, you're at risk. Same thing with your laptop. You need to be current with antivirus protection and the latest versions, because as good as we are, companies that produce the antivirus and government and what have you, the other side is equally good. And as soon as we get ahead of them, they catch up, and it's this constant, race. It's technology, and technology is not going away. It's going to expand even more so with AI and automation and what have you. So stay current. Same thing with passwords, which we'll get into. Making online purchases without confirming a secure website. According to the FTC and their latest numbers, the biggest area of fraud nationally was for online purchases during the last 3 months, and then hospitality, travel, what have you. But those online purchases, a lot of that is because they're just fraudulent companies. People didn't verify they ordered, they didn't get the product, their money disappeared. Those people who use public Wi-Fi hotspots, we're not visiting Starbucks like we used to, for example. I love Starbucks, but it's places like that where you're tapping into public Wi-Fi, not a good thing, especially if you're at the library trying to do it, or at Starbucks, some other place, and you're trying to pay your bills online. There, public Wi-Fi, not a good idea. So those are types or behaviors on our end where we can become exposed. The other one, which I'm going to cover now, is also there's a lot of exposure through data breaches. And so where the things that I've been talking about before, I'll get back into, you have a lot of control there. A data breach, you do not. It's unfortunate, but this is where your information has been breached, because your information has been housed at a service provider. It could be Google, it could be Yahoo, it could be Target, it could be the medical space, and their information has been breached, and that's not your fault. So data breaches, protection, check website, whatever entity this is, and these are also retailers. Data breaches, check website of retailer or company for further instructions if you believe that there's been a breach and your information is being used out there. After breach, criminals can wait years to use your stolen information, and that's very, very true. Like with the unemployment, a lot of this information was hacked, breached years ago. And a great example is, so there could be a breach. And by the way, typically when a breach happens, companies don't realize they were breached until 4 to 7 months down the road. So a criminal can do a lot in those first 4 to 7 months before it's recognized. So it's real, it's scary, but it's there. So they can wait years. There's a site I'm going to show you here in a few minutes. You can see if your information has been breached. Over the past few years, you can put in your email. I've done it for myself. Mine's been breached with companies 8 times. And one of these being LinkedIn, they sat on it for 4 years before they started utilizing the information. So if your credit card is stolen, I think this has all happened. Usually we lose our credit cards, but you need to cancel and issue new. You need to monitor your statements. You need to run and check your credit reports regularly. I'm going to mention that several times through this presentation. So here's the dark web. And I know that sounds like a silly name, but it's very, very real and it's a very common term. This is what it looks like. So the web itself, so, kind of where we are today and how we spend our days on Facebook and shopping and socializing, that's the surface web. That's the surface web. And you have a picture of a sky here. This is where we feel at ease and free and we're exploring and we're educating ourselves. That's only about 4% of what the web is. Then there's the deep web, which is about 90% here. And so the deep web is really, as it says here, that subset of internet information. This is where passwords are used. We're using your passwords and different levels to get into information. It's where the financial information with the banks and medical and all that kind of floats, from one entity to the next and what have you. And that's the deep web, and that's legitimate, even though deep can be kind of a scary word. It's not. It's just big and vast, and that's where that information is stored. Then there's the dark web, and this is where a lot of the criminal activity, takes place. It's where the IP addresses are accessed, and where criminals will have gained information, and where they buy and sell your information, and just negative activity happens. But that's about 6%. But this is kind of what that virtual, that web world looks like with these percentages. So, and I will make this presentation available to anybody that wants. Well, I can give it to the council and they can send it out. But you might want to go and write this down. This is the site that I was talking about. It's a very it's been around longer than any other, but it's called I Have Been Pawned. And just notice there's not an A in pawn. This is what I have been into recently, and I saw that my email, which I've had for a long time, that email has been in numerous breaches, and it's concerning. One of which was LinkedIn, and so being in the professional space, law enforcement, profile. Most of us do. We're normal, and LinkedIn was breached back in 2016. And these are millions of records. Some art and design software programs that I use to create some of the advisories that you see have been breached. One with my children, a software program they used in school, 4 years that they were in school, because they were tablet only, very few textbooks. It was the primary software program that they used. It has been breached. And sometimes it's just ID and passwords. Some of these, if it's medical, then you have all kinds of information that is lost. Social Security, date of birth, a lot of PII, personal identifiable information, which the criminals love to get a hold of. So you may want to write this down, use your phone, take a picture of it, and just 2 seconds. Put in your email address. It's reliable, and it'll tell you where the breaches have taken place. And then it'll also show you at the bottom of the page what the more recent breaches have been, whether you've been involved with it or not. More than likely you haven't, but this is a good resource. So breaches still. So identity theft, financial information right here. Your financial account information can be exposed, PIN numbers, related. So now you may have noticed signing on to various things. There's 2 stages that you may have to go through to get in, which is great. That is definitely one of the better ways to feel secure with your banks or any most entities. Definitely with the banks. I know banks I use. Not only do I put in an ID, the password, then there's the facial recognition. Sometimes it's a thumbprint, or it could be other things. But sometimes that information could be lost as well. But it's rare. But anyway, they take this information, and then suddenly they can pretend to be you and open up. Either you get into your checking or savings or accounts. Sometimes they'll take that information and they'll open their own. You don't even know about it for a long period of time. It's really bad if they're able to open up lines of credit. We all know what happens when your credit is too extensive. It impacts your credit report. Losses can be huge. So there's the financial information. Then there's the personal information, driver's license number, social security, date of birth, all of that. Fraudster may make initial loan payments to increase the amount that they may be borrowed before cashing out. So they do ride it for a while to make it seem legit, and then they cash out, and you're hit pretty hard. You can be. Date of birth, etc. But keep in mind, and I'll touch on this in just a minute, but there's something called farming, and these professionals, sometimes they'll sit, they may, sometimes they'll just throw the net out and try to see who they can get. Sometimes they'll identify certain people and they'll farm you, so to speak, for a year, 2 years, and gradually get more and more pieces of information until they can truly pretty much access what they want. And it may be synthetic, where there's some real information and some fake information, but they're able to create a new entity. It's called farming. And Facebook actually contributes to that, and other social media, not just Facebook, but other social media. So ID theft methods. This, as you can see, the most controllable on your end to the least controllable. Obviously, kind of old school purse billfold. If you lose that or it's stolen, you know, it can be a hassle to correct, but also that information, you don't know how it can be used, but you have a lot of control over that. If you are doing the two things or carrying the two things in your wallet or your purse, social security card or your Medicare card, cease and desist, and don't do that. Do not carry those forms of identification. You don't need them on a daily basis. If someone gets a hold of those, particularly your social security number and Medicare, they can do a lot of damage. So just don't do it. Mail. We've had an increase, not just in the district, but other areas. There's been a lot of mailbox theft. So what they're doing is they are, you know, if you put a flag up on your mailbox, if it's your own individual, that's a signal that come and take me, not only for the Postal Service, but for crime. And there are organized crime rings here that's what they do is they hit mailboxes. They're hitting community boxes where there may be like 30 boxes or whatever, and they're ripping the backs off. And they get in there, they're taking stimulus checks, they're taking anything, you might be pre-qualified for something. They're looking for whatever. And there's a lot of dumpster diving, which is where they're going through the trash, even in 2020. So you have some say on the mail, and you have some say on what you throw away. For example, with your checks, if you use checks, have them sent to the bank versus your house, because if they come into your house, they're going to come to the mailbox and they can be taken. Telemarketing fraud, trash, vehicles, all the way down. So the least controllable are going to be these data breaches, like I said, and of course, something like employee identity theft. So I talked about the mailboxes. That's a signal that there's stuff in there to be taken. And on that note, actually, I told Gretchen I would mention this. So we've gotten a few reports nationally, and it's happening here. There's a scam where people, especially with COVID, are sending in more donations. They're sending in more donations to the church, for the betterment of the church. And what's happening is these checks, in the course of the mail, are being intercepted, and they're being taken and they're being cashed by the wrong person or entity. But the person that's writing the check, all they do is they see that it was cash. They assume that the church has received the money, but the church isn't expecting the donations in the first place. So, you know, rarely are things identified or corrected. But that's through the mail. And it seems like a lot of religious organizations are being hit by that. Skimming is something else where the gas pumps and the ATMs, this is just where in the past it was an external sleeve that was kind of put into the slot, and you would come to put your card in, either an ATM or a gas pump. It would read your information. Of course, the pump or the ATM would read it also, and you'd be able to do your transaction. In the old days, and this is just a year or two ago, they would have to go back into the gas pump or to the ATM and pull out like a flash drive or something like that to obtain the information. Now the devices, these sleeves are actually, you can't see them at all. They're fully embedded in the slit. And through Bluetooth technology, they're just downloading the information. And so, but there are more and more owners or renters of the machines, or the bank or the gas stations are upgrading their technology and the hardware and the software. And there's more cameras within the gas pumps and around the ATM and what have you. So they're minimizing it. Apparently, Costco and the King Soopers gas stations are the newest and have the greatest technology. But I will tell you, just a few months ago, if you've ever been to the gas station at Morrison, 470, if you're going into Morrison, Red Rocks, or anything like that, that gas station, they pulled 6 skimmers out of their machines. They were only in there for a couple of days. They detected them, but 6 skimmers were pulled out of those machines. So a little high tech, but but not so much. So you just be careful. And you're really not going to know, but if you're not doing it, it's best to use a credit card versus a debit card, because if there is fraud and you use some type of recourse, the credit card company, the financial institution, typically will work with you on the credit side. So we're the same. Phishing. I don't know if you've heard of phishing or not. I identified it in advisories at the beginning of the presentation, but phishing, once again, these emails typically go out. It can be calls as well. It can be text, but these are going out. You may get something like this. It's eBay. You're not going to have that little red, orange, never click on this on something like this. But what it is this is a fraudulent site. This is not eBay, and you're being told that your account's been frozen or suspended, or you need to verify something. It's quick and simple, or you're eligible for whatever, and you click on it, and then they've got you. You go into a whole different bucket, and you will certainly be exposed to more fraud. In the future, they may install some malware on your system. There was a scam here locally in several places just about 2 months ago, where supposedly it was coming as a text, but it was from Target. And Target said, with COVID-19, the hardships that people are experiencing, we're giving you $175 in free groceries. All you have to do is click on this link to be taken to the next step in order to do that. Well, what happened is if you clicked on that link, it installed some nasty malware, and what it would do is it would actually read your keystrokes. So when you go in to put in a password, it reads which buttons you're hitting. At that point, they have access to your password and ID. So something as simple as that. But this is phishing. Once again, even if you know the company, if this was something that was unsolicited, don't click on it. Don't click on it. You'll get texts from your bank from time to time, maybe on a deposit you made or certain type of purchase. You may get a text. Still be suspicious of that. Typically, just call the bank. But I will tell you this though: if you get a text from your bank, and I get them from mine, and it's a phone number that shows it's a phone number that's coming from Bank of America, U.S. Bank, Wells Fargo, whatever. If it's a phone number, that's fraud. Typically, it's going to come in as a 6-digit number, 3 digits, a dash, and 3 digits. And typically that is from your financial institution. But play it safe, read the number off the back of your card, call them up, go online, get the phone number, and just say, did you mean to send this? Is this legit? Play it safe. Because if you don't, it can take a long time to clean things up. ID theft over the phone, use your voicemail to block screen calls. If you don't know them, let them leave a message. If they don't, it wasn't important. You can set up do not call registry. Don't talk to strangers on the phone. Like I said, these are professionals. They're good. They will manipulate you. They'll try to get you in an emotional spot. They'll tell you what you want to hear. And this can go on for months. It could be a dating scam. It could be to purchase something. A very common one, especially for folks over 65, are these fraudsters calling in, and they're offering tech support for you to help you get to protect yourself about all the things we're talking about right here. A lot of these are fraudulent companies. You need to be the one going to pick out the company that you want to work with if you choose to go that route. But obviously, if they're trying to help you to secure yourself, you're going to be turning over sensitive information. So don't do it. So ID theft over the phone. So if you don't know this, these are just some simple steps right here. If you're on the browser, Google, whatever, just looking around. So typically how you can tell if you have a secure site is it needs to have that HTTPS : // that HTTPS typically indicates this is a legitimate site. Sometimes you'll click on a site or you'll go through a search and it'll pop up and you may see unsecured. It may be that obvious, but you definitely want to have that HTTPS. And then you're going to have this symbol, this lock, and it could be gray, it could be green, but you still have that HTTPS next to it. So if you hover over that line, the address line, well, one, you should see this right off, but if you hover over it, it should highlight the true address. So if it's a fraudulent site, you may see it. So just these simple little steps. If it says unsecured, just don't go. Just don't go there. Spoofing is something else. This is often where a number comes in and it says it's an entity that they've been able to put like a jacket over it, so to speak, and it could be a phone call. But what I'm going to talk about right here, I mean, it could be a phone number, is the email side right here, the spoofing. So the suspect spoofs the email, being the name, they will replace or substitute or transpose letters. So where you typically have gotten something from somebody, John Doe, they may come in as a John _Doe, and you're just not catching it. You're so used to seeing it. Here's a sneaky one right here. If you put a lowercase r and n together, it looks like an M. Because typically the font is not going to be this big as this PowerPoint. So that's, so that, right, that one letter of difference is it could be a fraudulent site and take you somewhere to someone that you don't want to be associated with. Often the big capital L, lower L, 1, especially in the smaller print, it can be off and not be correct. Make sure, is it a .com, is it a .net? But look right here. So I'm asking you, can you tell the difference? So look at the two. The difference here in this first one is that L. One is a capital I and one is a lowercase l. Makes all the difference. Then you have Huckleberry Law, outlook.com. Here a 1 has been placed in there. And here's a really sneaky one. Look at John Smith and John Smith. One is a 0, one is the letter O. So you can also highlight on the address line, and you can hover over that, and it should tell you what the true email address is. So hover over that and see what pops up. Another safeguard is instead of just replying, if you hit forward, it puts you more in control. Often if you put reply and it's fraudulent, how are you going to know until it's too late? Hover over the name, just be careful when you're clicking. You kind of need to look at the detail. It's unfortunate we have to do that these days, but look at the detail. Who called who? Be careful with public Wi-Fi. And then again, if you get these calls or these emails, particularly late in the day, late on a Thursday, late on a Friday, and it's especially if it's urgent on the business side or the personal side, often it's a scammer. It's fraudulent, and they're trying to push you in a sense of urgency to get you going a certain direction. I think I'm going to say about Facebook, and it's not just Facebook. I'm not picking just on them, but a lot of us are on Facebook. For those definitely Generation X and boomers and beyond, we're still pretty active on Facebook. A lot of the younger kids are not. They're using other things. But we put so much information on Facebook, so much information. And there's a lot of people, criminals that are out there that are going to spend their time learning about you on Facebook. Suddenly you have a new grandchild. We're so proud to share the details about this grandchild, like on Facebook or social media. So we're posting all these different things. Newly married, your kids are getting married, you get in a new house, renovation. We post all these things, and it's just, all they got to do is go in there and they farm you and they pluck this stuff out. Let's say you're the CEO or pretty high in management in a company. So Facebook is the personal side. Well, they're working. So this may be an entity that's trying to create ID theft on the business side and access those accounts, but they can very easily go to the Facebook side and learn that Michael is actually known as Mikey. He's the CEO of ABC company, and learn that he has all these kids or whatever. But let's say suddenly at work, someone in charge of HR or finance or whatever gets an email from the CEO, but it's coming as like Mikey. And it's like, I really need you to do these things. You know, we need to treat these employees, they're experiencing hardships with COVID, you know, do this. And they're like, well, it's coming from Mikey, not Michael. So it's it's him, and it's not. But they fished or they farm information through something like Facebook. A lot of these, and I encourage everyone to continue to do Zoom and WebEx and these virtual series, was, you know, to stay connected, definitely to stay connected and to learn whatever. But keep in mind what's behind you. Some of these are hacked, and they come in and they're looking at you, and you have your degree from whatever university, and you have pictures of kids, and there's this and that. They can pick up a lot of subtle information just from what's in the background coming through your camera. But Facebook, just think about what you put out there. Kids are probably the worst because they want to fit in and they want to share. They're doing this through Snapchat and TikTok and some of these other ones. It's they give out too much information. And by the way, even though folks over 65 experience a tremendous amount of fraud, I've done 2 advisories recently on kids that are in their teens and their 20s experience more fraud than the folks on this call. We have greater losses financially because we typically have more income, but the kids get hit by fraud more often and fall prey to it because they want to share, they want to fit in, they share their passwords with friends, they are so susceptible to crime. And the other thing is, when it comes to ID theft, and the last one I just put out was on child ID theft, just an FYI, because a lot of us have grandkids, is 25% of kids by the time they reach 18 have been exposed to ID theft. Because a lot of these criminals, what they're doing, they're accessing these kids' social security numbers before they're even 16, and they're establishing credit, and they're establishing different things because the kids shouldn't have a credit report in the first place, but their numbers has been obtained, and then they create an identity. And it's not until the kids maybe going to college that they have to get a credit card or something like that. And the family finds out, oh my gosh, our son or daughter has 2 credit cards open, and this has happened and that's happened because they were access breached 5 years before. So it's advisable to tell your kids to tell their grandkids, or have your kids do it. By the time they're 16, have them see if your grandchild has a credit report out there. And I've posted various safeguards that you can do. Sometimes you just need to go ahead and establish a credit report or credit file for your child, even though they're 14 or 15, and then put a freeze on it. Because once you establish it, put a freeze on it, nobody can access it, and there's a wall around it. On the flip side, a lot of individuals that are deceased, their social security numbers may still float around out there, and no one's paying attention to anything about that social security number. A lot of those are hacked, and then someone that's deceased, their information is then being used by a criminal for financial gain and the like. So, give you a lot on this slide, but the bottom line is be careful what you put out there. Password protection, just quickly, change your passwords regularly. Don't recycle your passwords. You need to, it's recommended you do at least 13 characters with a variety of different upper, lower numbers, special symbols. Like I said, don't recycle. If and a lot of us do, we use old passwords. One of the most recent scams that took place, it's an old type of scam, but it happened recently, was this Bitcoin blackmail. There was a breach and passwords and IDs were obtained. So people were getting these emails that had their ID or password in the address line or the subject line. So they thought, well, surely this is something that I've used in the past or somewhat recently. And they clicked on it. Then there was a scam saying, well, we've placed malware on your system, so we have access to everything on it, plus your camera. We have all your Facebook accounts. We have all your phone contacts. We know that you've been going to inappropriate websites. Through the camera, we've seen you do inappropriate things to yourself. So if you don't surrender $2,000 in Bitcoin, which is a big red flag for international, within 24 hours, we're going to expose all these improper things that you've been doing to all of your contacts. And luckily, everyone that called in, none of them fell for it. They might have clicked over, but they did not fall for it. But on the password side, you need to change your passwords regularly. If they get your password and they can access one of your accounts, whatever that may be, with the bank or whatever, they're going to run that through every account that chose for you. And 80% of the time, they're successful in breaching or accessing other account groups. And you probably looked at the other suggestions here. Online safety, once again, stay current. Definitely get the virus protection. Use strong passwords. Be careful on public Wi-Fi. Just avoid those links that you don't know, those things that they're unsolicited. Identity theft safety, keep your credit card inside at all times. Like I said, don't carry your Social Security Medicare card with you. Electronic funds, transfers, direct deposits, just don't, if you're pressured to send funds, don't. Be careful when they say do gift cards or electronic transfers. Check your financial statements regularly. We need to do that. You need to check your credit reports regularly. Experian, there's 3 credit agencies. There's Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. They're all great sites to go to. They put out a lot of education there, but you need to go in and check and see what your standing is. Experian has a really good app. It's free. You can sign up and you can check your score pretty regularly with Experian. And it'll also show, though not always quite as current, it'll show the TransUnion and Equifax, but it's at your fingertips. And they do, at least for me, it's facial recognition when I sign in. So I feel pretty good about tapping into it, but that's Experian. And then you've probably seen some of the other tips here. Warning signs, withdrawals you didn't make, credit card charges you didn't, that you didn't do. If you don't recognize, if you're checking, you'll pick up on these. I told you what to do for your grandchild. Definitely look into that to see if there's a history there. If they're unfamiliar accounts, another warning sign, you receive bills that, where did these come from? Debt collectors trying to collect, where did this come from? I get calls from people enough like this, I don't owe. I paid off my mortgage, but I'm getting this. Say they owe, that we owe, they'll put us in foreclosure. The IRS saying that it's always a good tip if you can to file your tax return on time, because there's a lot of theft out there. And if you've been breached, someone can use your information and file for a refund and get it before you do. So if you go ahead and file and close that door, it's pathetic. But yes, I already told you about the unemployment. Are you health insurance company will not insure you because of a health condition you don't have? These are signs that someone may have your information. Recovering identity theft, and through most fraud, the first step, and you can always call me and I'll show you how to do that. First and foremost, file a police report. It all starts there. It becomes official. It's a way to show innocence. And then that information can be transferred if needed to other entities like the DA's office or the FBI or the Federal Trade Commission, the Business Bureau. So file a police report, cancel all compromised cards and accounts. You can contact the company when you think that the breach took place. Sometimes they'll help you change your passwords, which you need to be doing regularly. Review your personal profiles, contact the credit agencies, set up a credit monitoring account. Once again, if ID theft happens, it can take years. I have someone that's been fighting it for 7 years. She dealt with it for a couple, it was quiet, and now it's back again because your information just gets traded off. And by the way, your social security number on the dark web is worth about $1. Your credit card information is worth about $100. Your passport information is worth about $1,000. Your medical records, depending what's there, is worth about $1,000 on the black market or the dark web. So they're all worth something. So before using this information, and you can always file a police report, ID theft. You can file with the FTC. You can always call me and I can guide you. There's just various steps that you need to take, and you need to be pretty quick to act. So the resources available. So once again, our district attorney currently is George Brockler for the 18th Judicial District, which is Douglas, Arapahoe, Lincoln, Elbert. And through the consumer fraud, which I oversee, I'm getting ready to push out a new newsletter once a month with a range of different things. I'm sending out advisories. I'm going to put steps on our website here if you are exposed to ID theft, what you can do. I'm doing a lot of virtual presentations. I'm happy to do this or other ones on a range of different topics. Bring people in on elder abuse as well with our department to talk. So there's a lot of good things taking place. Here's the hotline number which comes to me. This is the hotline number, 720-874-8547. That email is the hotline email. We have offices in all 4 counties. I happen in normal times, reside in the Arapahoe office. But if you want to file a complaint, or if you are just need to talk, help me to understand. You can reach out. It may be a day or two before I get back to you, but I have a lot of wonderful conversations and I think some helpful conversations. And then there's the law enforcement hat that is put on for those matters where we're become a referral unit. Either we're taking things on directly or we're helping you to work with the FBI or the FTC or other entities. And bottom line is, I get asked this a lot, are we able to have, or in law enforcement, are we having an impact on this type of crime? Absolutely. And the biggest key here, even if you didn't experience a financial loss, if you experience fraud, we need you to report it. We may have you report it to the FTC if it's an internet-based thing, but when you report, we have the data, we get more and more data, and then it allows us, especially at the federal level, better position to go after these organized crime rings and suppress or minimize. A lot of these are international, so we're limited, but we are very successful in suppressing. So that was a lot of information, and I was just skimming the surface there. Like I said, I'm happy to come back and talk. But if there's any questions right now that I can answer, I would love to do it. I'm not sure where we are on time, so I minimize here, but any questions?
Hi, Jamie. This is CJ, the host of this meeting here. We just had a couple questions come in during your presentation here. So the first question came from Julia Young. She asked, what was the name of the website to look up a company?
Oh, for let me get back to this real fast. When I was talking about like charities, organizations. So.
Correct. Yep.
Okay. So the Colorado Secretary of State, just put in Colorado Secretary of State. And so if you are forming a business entity or a nonprofit or whatever, you register with the state. And if you go in there, you'll see it right away where you can put in an organization's name and see if they're registered with the state. There's some other sites too that are third party, but definitely you can go to the Colorado Secretary of State. Another place you can go just to get comments to see what the public is saying is you can always go to the Better Business Bureau site, which is bbb.org, the Denver site for that, and put in a company, whether it's an auto repair shop or restaurant, whatever you contractors. I think go there and see if there's comments. I getting calls right and left these days about contractor fraud. And of course, the BBB is just going to give you a little more background if this is somebody you should work with, or not.
Okay, perfect. The next question we had was from Shannon Miller. She asks, if I change my password for my email after I found out it was pawned using this site, is all that I need to do? Is that all I need to do? Or is it the case that I need to shut down the email address and use a different email address?
You can shut it down. Most people don't. I know like my primary email I've had for 12 plus years. If that's been compromised, it's been compromised more than likely. If it's been a breach, they've got more than just the password. So my answer is not necessarily. Most people don't. But then again, if you've changed the password on that, and definitely if you're using dual authentication, standards, that second level, then it can limit in some ways further negative, activity against you. So.
Great, thank you. I have not received any other chats for questions, and I see no other hands raised.
Okay.
Let's see, actually, I just received another one. Just give me 1 second here, please. So it looks like Rosemary Sispansky has a question. Rosemary, you are unmuted if you would like to speak into your microphone and ask the question.
Yeah, I sure do.
Perfect. Go ahead.
I tried to get a hold of an unemployment office, and they kept guiding me from one to the other to the next. I never ended up getting to even voice my question.
Okay.
I'm have a couple of questions on how do I apply for unemployment. I never have, but due to this coronavirus, which has really nothing to do with me, I had an incident. I had a work accident, and since April, I'm not receiving any kind of money. And I'm just wondering, because I cannot do that job I did before, is there a possibility for me to draw unemployment?
Possibly. I mean, obviously they're better suited to handle that. How about this? If you want to, I can try to assist you and try to get some information for you. If you want to call the number.
I would very much appreciate it if you can give me the number.
Right. So because to be able to file, you should be able to go their side, and the instructions should be there. It is harder and harder these days to, whether it's a merchant or even a bank or government, it can be really hard to get in touch with the person. We know that's the case with Social Security Administration. We know that's the case with IRS. Who you're trying to get in touch with here, I know they're overwhelmed, and even government entities are experiencing COVID from a personnel standpoint. So things are a little bit different, but I'm happy. If you want to call me, I can try to, let me look into it for you and see if I can assist you. I've been able to help others with like Verizon issues, customer service, just trying to see if there's another way to
Yeah,
access.
I have tried so many numbers, because one of them told me to dial this number, the other one said go to this number, and I ended up with nothing.
Right. I'm not surprised. I'm not picking on them, but I'm not surprised.
I'm not either. I'm sure they're totally overwhelmed with what's going on right now. But I really would, like I said, I have a couple of questions how I can go about, or even if I'm allowed to draw for, because it was a workman's comp thing.
Okay. Let's talk. And
I can, I can call just your number. Any special time?
If just during the week.
Okay.
No, actually, it doesn't matter. I mean, if you do get my voicemail, I'll call you back, but you can call it anytime.
Okay, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Is there anybody out there that, and there may be another question, I'm not sure, but I mean, Are there any other types of fraud you're curious about right now? There's a lot going on with unemployment, the way it is, and benefits kind of drying up for a lot of people that filed early. A lot of people were faced with trying to pay their mortgage, potential foreclosure, or they're renting. There's a tremendous amount of mortgage elimination fraud and foreclosure fraud and rental fraud going on. So be very, very careful. Don't let any of these entities come in and try to say they can help you. To not talk to your lender anymore, but to talk to them and they'll help you to eliminate. Don't go there. There's a lot of that. There is a lot of increase in dating fraud. The over 65 is getting hit pretty hard. There's a lot of sweepstakes fraud taking place. Once again, don't. And it sounds too good to be true. Don't fall for it. Be careful in the job scams, especially work at home. You never have to pay. You don't have to pay to get unemployment either. And another one that is really bubbling is a lot of people are adopting puppies. And so because what a great time to raise a puppy, right? When everyone's home, you get more time and attention. There's a lot of fraud going on, fraudulent puppy farms or entities or individuals that represent themselves and selling a puppy. And a lot of people will buy puppies from across state lines and make the payment, and then there's no puppy. But believe it or not, we're hearing a lot about that. I'm hearing it in 17th. I'm hearing about it in Jefferson, the 1st District, up in Denver. Do your research. So there's a little bit of everything. And just a little tidbit to put out there. Did you know that to actually rob a bank, old school, Bonnie and Clyde, rob a bank, typically the average amount of money that is gained, if at all, in a robbery like that, where there's a lot of thought into it and it actually happens, is about $5,000. $5,000. And they may get caught, they may not with the die packs, but $5,000. And look at the risk there. Then look at these white collar types of fraud and scams that I've been talking about. How much more money could potentially be gained over several years? Once again, these are professionals. They get what they do. They can be very convincing and they're relentless. So don't underestimate, but please feel empowered. The data breaches are the data breaches, but if you can do these other things, and I'll share this PowerPoint, you can go back and look. Simple steps, common sense, staying logical can protect you the majority of the time. And then if you're suspicious or you have been frauded, even if it's not financial, report it. Report it to us, file a police report. I can direct you to the FBI site where it's relevant, and it's pretty relevant a lot, especially for internet-based and FTC. So always report, don't be embarrassed. We all experience fraud. I told you my email's been compromised 8 times. So it makes me want to be even more diligent and staying on top of financial records or monthly statements and the like. So, but we're here for you at the District Attorney's Office for Arapahoe Douglas, Albert Lincoln. The door is always open. Utilize us, and I'm happy to speak again on some other topics. I can go deeper on some of these, and it's not just for those over 65. We'll be launching a big program for the young, which in schools, for social media and ID theft, and there's a very broad range of things to cover, and we're here to help and support you. So.
Great, and this is CJ again. We just have a couple folks actually calling in, so they will not be able to see the screen. So I just wanted to repeat the phone number here that's on the screen, Jamie. So for the people calling in that can hear but not see the screen, this is the contact information for the Consumer Fraud Protection. So this is the phone number if you guys have a pen and paper handy. It's area code 720-874-8547. And that's the phone number that Jamie was referencing there. So,
and then if it's easier to email, what is on the screen right now, it's consumer, singular. So consumer, CONSUMER, at DA for district attorney, DA 18 dot state, STATE dot CO for Colorado dot US. So consumer at DA18 dot state dot CO dot US.
Great. And I have not received any more chats, or I do not see any more hands raised as far as questions go from the attendees.
Okay. Well, I have enjoyed being able to speak to everyone. Very relevant realm that once again impacts or can impact all of us. But I wish everyone a wonderful week. Please be safe, stay healthy, and reach out as needed.
Hey, Gretchen, this is CJ. It looks like you're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So I wanted to thank you so very much, Jamie, for a wonderful presentation. Certainly a lot of information for us to consider and to digest. And CJ, I know you mentioned we are taping this presentation. Where and when will it be available?
I'm actually going to pass that question to Valerie Robinson here with the Douglas County staff. So the recording on my end will be available. It just takes an hour or two to process within the system of Cisco WebEx events. Once that is available, I will make that available for Valerie, and she will send it out. And where will that be available, Valerie?
Hi, CJ. Thanks for passing it along. We will have it available on a couple of different locations. I will be emailing it out. Actually, Gretchen, I can also put it on the First Friday update as one of our quick little brief updates. I will also put it on the website and the Facebook page. And if it makes sense, we can also send it out to everybody who got the email for this meeting. If you got on this meeting not through an email and you'd like to make sure you're on my email list, you can go to the Dougco Senior Life at douglas.co.us. That's also on the Facebook page and on the website, so you can get on the First Friday list and on our email list.
Great.
And CJ, thank you for videoing it and for making it available for us. We really appreciate that. We should also be able to put it on the Senior Council YouTube channel, but we will check on that.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Well, I want to thank everyone for joining us today, and hopefully you learned a lot. I know I did. And please consider joining us next month for Officer Blanchard's presentation. I'm sure that's going to be very informative as well. Stay healthy and stay connected. Bye for now.